my name's Jade and today I will be going through all the books that I read in October. Look, I'm wearing a Sanderson Sisters t-shirt. Hocus Pocus for life. This month I read 1 play, 2 graphic novels, and 3 books. I believe they're all novels, but one of them, actually now that I think about it, might be a novella. It's very short. So that's 6 books. I'm also in the middle of a graphic novel though that I'm pretty sure I'll finish by the end of the month. And I'm also halfway through another novel. So 6, 7-ish books this month. Let's get into it. The first thing I read this month was Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. You might have heard of this one. I actually went to Shakespeare's Globe in London and watched their adaptation of this there, which was really interesting and different. It was like a modern one, you know, where they're wearing modern clothes and very much brought in themes of like troubled youths and homelessness and mental health and the expectations we put on young people today. Very interesting. They like cut out a few scenes as well to like quicken it up, and there was a karaoke section and it was very interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But the play itself, I read this for my GCSEs, so I would have been 15, 16. I'm currently 22, so a while ago. And I hadn't read it again since, but since then I'd read quite a few other of Shakespeare's work. I did a Shakespeare module in my university class, so it was really interesting to come back to the one that I first read, and I really enjoyed it when I first read it, and I have a lot of respect for it, but compared to the ones that I've read since, I don't think it's his best work. I don't know, it just kind of fell a little flat. I thought I remembered it really well, and there were some parts that I remembered really well, where I analysed them to death in class. But there were other sections that I just completely forgot, and the pacing was way different from what I was expecting it to be. So it was an interesting ride. I equally remembered a lot and not a lot at the same time, and it was just a really interesting experience reading this one again. I'd give it like, I don't know, a 7 out of 10. That feels like blasphemous to give Romeo and Juliet a 7 out of 10. But like compared to his other stuff, I just think some of his other stuff's better. Next, I read Giant Days Volume 7. If you've been watching these videos, you know that I've been reading Giant Days this year. I will leave a link below to the video where I discuss the first couple and kind of break down the premise. I'm really struggling with what to say about these at this point because I just feel like I say the same thing every time. I enjoyed it. They're really fun, cute, easy reads. I fly through them every time. Each collection only has 4 issues, so they're super easy to fly through. They're kind of silly, but they're really fun. I feel like there were a couple in the middle of what I've read so far, like in the 3 to 5 area that kind of lost their way. Just a little, they just kind of pushed the boundaries of what I was willing to believe. I think there was one that I just wasn't as interested in. It was something about like a presidential election, and I just didn't really care. The last couple I've really enjoyed. Volume 6 and 7, I really enjoyed this one. Don't know what else to say. 8 out of 10. Good stuff. Next, I read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. If you do not know, Erin Morgenstern wrote The Night Circus, which I read a couple of years ago. Wow. Yeah, like a couple of years ago. That's crazy. It was in my 2nd year of university. It's weird to me that that was so long ago. I really enjoyed it, but I did have 1 or 2 problems with it, and it just brought it down for me because everything was so like flawless, and then there were 1 or 2 things that no longer made it flawless because I had enjoyed it so much and because I wanted to love it so much. Those 2 like nitpicky things, or I can't remember how many there were, but there were a couple of nitpicky things, really brought it down in my eyes. I was so bummed that it couldn't be like, this is phenomenal and amazing and I love it to death. I do really love it though. I still think of it really fondly. Her writing style is really unique. You just kind of get transported into this whole new world, and there's something very like lyrical and elegant and calm about the writing style. This came out, I think, when did you come out? Yeah, this came out in 2019, and I bought it pretty soon after because I wanted this stunning Waterstones exclusive edition, which I think is just to die for. It is so stupidly beautiful, like everything about it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Last year was like, I'm gonna read it this year. I'm gonna stop putting it off and I'm just gonna read it. And I didn't. But I've read it finally. And I have to say, I loved it. Definitely can see this one being like one of my new like all-time faves. And I've seen like reviews and people talking about it, like I, obsessively wanted to see what everyone else thought when I finished it. A lot of people have the same thing where they're like, I can't really describe why I loved it or what it is about it I loved, but I just loved it. It's hard to formulate into words how magical this tale is and how it's very weird. Don't like weird books? Might not be for you. I've not even given you a synopsis and I don't know how I would give you one. Okay, so our lead character is Zachary Rawlings, and in his university library he finds this really mysterious book and he kind of can't stop thinking about it, and he takes it upon himself to figure out what the hell is going on with this really mysterious book. And from there, adventure ensues, and mystery and magic and mayhem, and it's amazing and beautiful, and I can. It's one of those books, if you're a book lover, if stories and words are really important to you, this is for you. There's books like for book lovers. This is one of those. There are so many times reading this where the words were just so stunning and I just had to take a second and go, wow. And it wasn't even like that they were always these like really big, complex thoughts and these really clever ideas or, really touching or anything. Sometimes just the descriptions were so beautiful that I was like, wow, she has such a brilliant way of crafting stories and words. It's definitely a bit mental. And there are definitely times where you're like, what the actual hell is going on? But I think that gives it some charm. I liked that about it. It kind of feels like you're Alice going through the rabbit hole. That's kind of what it feels like. But just trust it. Things do start making sense. There were one or two little things that I wasn't 100% locked down on, but I don't care. I hope I'll reread it someday and maybe understand it then. I've seen other people who are confused about one or two things. I think there was something that I was confused about that no one else seems to be, so that just might be me. The writing is beautiful, the premise is beautiful, the story is beautiful, the details are to die for. Like, when I think of this book, I think of bees and cocktails and honey and nectar and warm spices and books and cats and candlelight, and it's just so great. 10 out of 10 to The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Easily my favourite book that I read this month. Next, I read Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. Yes, Sheridan Le Fanu. October is obviously spoopy month, and so I wanted to read some like Halloween-y, gothic-y type reads. I think The Starless Sea takes place over winter, but it has a very cozy feeling to it. I think it fits that autumn winter reads really well if you're looking for like a wintry autumnal recommendation. Anyway, this one. I enjoyed this. I knew what it was about going into it. It says on the front, this little tagline. And I think as soon as you know that that element is involved, it's really easy to know what's going on. Originally, people wouldn't have known because this was written before this trope became a really popular trope. I don't want to say it because if you don't know and you're completely oblivious, I want you to be able to read it without knowing. But also, if you pick it up, like this edition, which I love, I actually just saw this edition, was like, okay, I have to get it. I'd heard things about it anyway though. Then you're gonna know what it's about. When it came out, this trope wasn't popular. And so it would have been this big mystery as to what the hell is going on, and the, big twists and turns, and when you can pretty much figure out how it was all gonna go down, and I figured out how it was all gonna go down. Because when it was originally written, that suspense, that mystery was the main driving force of the plot. When that's taken away, it does feel a tiny bit lackluster. I can't say that I had this really thrilling, exciting ride. That being said, I did enjoy it. It's not the book's fault that this trope is now as popular as it is and that, everyone knows that's what it's about. I did read a review from Era Set that said that when the main mystery is taken away, you should still have something there to find enjoyable. And for her it didn't, and so that's why she thought it was completely lackluster. I enjoyed the weird relationship that goes on. There's like a weird friendship in this one. I was also reading this in the perspective that I want to mention this in my novel that I'm writing. So kind of trying to see it from one of my characters' point of view, which I had a lot of fun doing. And I think it's well written, it's mysterious and intriguing, and it's gothic, and it's got this kind of weird relationship aspect going on. Very, very, very short. It's like a 2.5 hour long audiobook. I would recommend it. It's quirky and different, and I had a fun time. But because of that plot element thing, I can't say that it was like phenomenal in my mind. I'd probably give it like between a 7 and an 8 out of 10, probably closer to a 7. And if you're looking for like gothic, interesting, quirky reads, maybe check this one out. Next up, I read Mooncakes by Wendy Xu and Suzanne Walker. This is a graphic novel following like witchy mischief, essentially. Friendship is really important in this one, and family, and it looks at those ideas, and it also looks at identity a little bit and has some kind of important themes in there, I think, about who you are and who people expect you to be and that kind of stuff, but it wasn't potent enough for my liking, and sometimes I could see they were trying to do these metaphors, but I wasn't always sure what they were trying to get at, like what they wanted me to take away from it. Like the spooky, witchy mischief side of it was fun. It was kind of like this big grand adventure though, and it went by too quickly for it to have like a really epic feeling, or for it to kind of sit with me. Kind of wished it was like in volumes, like even if it was just 4, say, volumes of collected different issues, I think it would have given it longer to breathe, and we could have gone in depth with these themes, and the build could have been bigger. Action and stuff like that in graphic novels is hard because you can't do every single little thing they do. This is me fighting. You know, you'd be there for ages reading this fight, but also a couple pages and the fight was done. And I have seen it done well, like there's action in Monstrous and in Saga, and it's always done really well in those two. I don't know, it was cute, but there was something lackluster about it, which is really disappointing because I had my hopes up. The illustrations were really nice, actually. I really liked the color palette and the illustrations. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on it. I'd give it a 6.5, I think. Or maybe even just a 6. I feel like my rating has for some reason shifted to the high end. Like a 6 still means I enjoy it. It's still over halfway. And the last book that I have finished this month so far was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is Leigh's adult novel in a whole new universe separate from the Grishaverse. It's really been the year of me catching up with Sarah J Maas and Leigh Bardugo's books. This takes place in Yale, and it's a world in which ghosts and magic exists, and our main character can see ghosts and most people can't, so you have to take this elixir, and it's a pretty dangerous ordeal every time, and you never know if you're going to survive it. So she gets brought into Lethe House, which is a house that looks over all the other secret societies that do all these magical things that may or may not be very dangerous and may or may not have caused a lot of trouble in the past. And so it's Lethe's job to make sure they're all keeping in line and they're not doing things they shouldn't be doing and everything's safe and well and good. Our main character Alex can see these ghosts. They're called Greys in the book. So she gets brought into Lethe House pretty early in the book. This isn't a spoiler. Someone is murdered. It's like in the 3rd chapter. But that's kind of what the book's about. It's about our main character trying to uncover this murder and figure out what the hell is going on, because things just aren't being what they should be, and it's all very weird and strange. I audiobooked this one. Lauren Fortgang, as well as a guy whose name I can't remember. And Lauren Fortgang did Shadow and Bone, although I didn't listen to the Shadow and trilogy, I read them, as well as Inej's voice in the Six of Crows duology, and she narrated the King of Scars duology, and I listened to all 4 of those. And she was also in The Language of Thorns and Lives of Saints, and I listened to both of those as well. I love her voice. After every one of the audiobooks from Leigh I've read before that, I'm like, maybe I should read it with my eyes, because it's just the way things are like enunciated and pronounced and stressed aren't how I would personally imagine them to be so. And the same thing happened with this one. It's like some of the voices weren't how I imagined them to be. It wasn't make or break because I can kind of, I know how I would have said that, how I would have interpreted that. When the second one comes out, I think I'm going to try and read it properly. The thing is, it's long, and I just get through like long, fantastical books so much easier when I audiobook them. And it was a really smooth listen. I looked forward to listening to it, and it always went down really quickly and easily. I don't know. It's just the fact that I've said this every time, and then every time I don't do it, I go back to listening to the book. She has a really cool voice. I do really like this narrator. I think it's just that I interpret things differently. Anyway, what was this guy's name? David Michael Axtell. He was great as well. Again, I don't love the way he interpreted Alex's voice all of the time, but they were both really solid, so I don't know. Okay, so there are one or two things that I'm not sure I fully understand in terms of the world building, like what's going on. I'm not 100% grounded in the world because of that, but the premise is really cool. It definitely has that like dark academia feel to it. It's got a really gritty feeling to it, which I loved. And like the mystery was great, and the way things tied together was great. There were some things that happened that I just did not see coming. It's pretty dark at times, but I loved that kind of like raw, gritty feeling, especially to our main character. I loved our main character. I was rooting for her so hard. I loved our other person that we read from. We also read from Darlington's perspective, who is Alex's mentor in Lethe. He's been there for 3 years, and it's his job to train her up to get her ready to take on the role. The other characters, I think, have a lot of potential. I'm intrigued as to what direction it's going, because there were some things hinted, and I think this is one of the things that I don't think let it down in my mind, but it was just a very different tone to what I thought. I thought we were going to stay in this dark, gritty, secret societies, like doing naughty things kind of tone, and there were some like little flavors of like a more epic, grand scale stuff happening, which felt quite reminiscent to like YA fantasy rather than like adult dark academia, which is what I wanted to stay in. I can see where we might be headed, and I'm just a little bit skeptical. Not skeptical, I'm just a little apprehensive, because I don't want us to lose the dark society weird magic vibes. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I'd give it between an 8 and a 9. I'm going back and forth. I'm gonna do a little spoiler section, I think, here to talk about some of the things that went down in a little more detail. So if you haven't read Ninth House, mute the screen until this picture here leaves. I was like desperately trying to like figure out what each member of the Veil was and what they were able to do. There's a glossary in the back of the book, so it turns out that wasn't totally necessary, but it did help, I think, like as I was going along trying to like figure out where we were. We have a pretty good idea for these societies, but I think there's still lots to learn. I'm really excited to learn more. Okay, one thing that's bugging me is Darlington disappears, right? Alex references when she's talking to Dean Sandow after the Gloom attack, and then she references again later on at some point, I can't remember when specifically, that right before he got sucked in, Darlington said it wasn't a portal. He said it was a or something, like I'm pretty sure it began with M. But then we see this section from Darlington's eyes when he gets sucked into the portal, not portal, and he doesn't say anything. He just looks at her and then gets sucked in. So why did he not, why was that not there? Imagine that he just like left it out of his narration, out of his perspective. It wasn't as important. But we referenced it multiple times, and it bugs me that it wasn't there. I also really wanted to see the scene where he was like led by the fireplace with his feet out, because Alex referenced that a couple times, and I'm pretty sure we didn't see it. I wonder if Lee wrote it and then cut it. The fact that we referenced it, I wanted to see that scene. I thought they liked each other. I thought there was like a romance between them, and maybe there kind of is, but it's very under the surface, which is intriguing in itself. This isn't necessarily a criticism, but I thought they knew each other better. I think Alex seems very desperate to have him back. I wonder if it's because she feels guilty, but like she also inferred at one point that she didn't save him because he just found out that she technically murdered like Len and whatever the other guys' names were. Like, they felt like they knew each other better than they probably would have. They'd only been at it a few months. And then at one point, I think it's when she lets North in, when she's fighting Tara's boyfriend. Oh, page 318, whatever the hell that is. Alex said something, and it dawned on me, like, she can see ghosts, and she can, like, let them in. Is there something more to her being able to see ghosts? Is it not just that she just so happens to be able to see ghosts? Like, is there a reason she can see ghosts? And like, why can she let them in? And does she have more power than she knows? And then obviously the end goes down. These wheel walkers who Madame Bellbottom / Daisy, I didn't see that one coming. I knew that Dean Sandow was in on it because partially I spoiled it for myself. I flicked through counting pages that I wanted to read or something, and I knew from pretty early on. When you know that it's him and you're reading it knowing that it's him, it's so obvious. He was so sus so many times. It's one of those things probably when you're reading it, you don't see it, but because I knew it, I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. He was so sus. We'll get to him in a minute. Bellbottom / Daisy did not see that coming. I was through a loop, like not even a little bit. I thought she was in on it somehow. I thought it was weird how she was like dragging Alex in. I sensed that she was involved. But she says a wheel walker are people that have all worlds open to them, which is gonna, I think, help with our mission to get Darlington back from hell. I think she has more ability than she realizes, like how she summoned them all at the end, and now she can hear them all the time. Her abilities, I think, are gonna, this is what I was talking about before in this fantastical route, I think it's gonna be like a thing. With Dean Sandow, when he was like, there'll be a meeting, we'll have our slash punch. Oh, it's so infuriating, just like the way these societies are set up and all that. And I was like, the literal point of Lethe is to make sure that they don't A, hurt innocent people, and B, aren't using their magic and abilities in corrupt ways and hurting the societies, and they have all these regulations. What is the actual point of you being there if you're just gonna give them a little... Duel said that if they were handing out merity to normal people, then society would be disbanded. And obviously it wasn't actually them. I think Tara kind of went rogue and did it by herself. No, she was dealing when she shouldn't have been dealing. But like, that was super, super sus. And I don't know why no one was like, hang on a minute, the actual point of our society is to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen and you're not even going to do anything. I mean, it turns out the Lethe member boards at the end are still just going to kind of cover it up. They're going to try and not make too big a deal of it because it was all from Dean Sandow, it was from the inside, and they want to protect the Lethe. I want to know more about these members. Like, I want to know more about how and when and why it was set up, because the societies don't seem to really want them there because they have to fund Lethe. It was agreed early on that it should be set up, I think maybe by the university, because they kept causing trouble. So who are these members? How much do they care? If like Sandow didn't care that much, are we gonna meet them? I think we're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to go back to the root of the problem. And these jackals, what? I was so mad when they bit her and I was like, oh, this is the fight from the beginning. I see what's going on here. But like, what is that? I wrote it in all capitals. What is the actual point of having these magical jackals to keep you safe if they attack you too? Like, can you not magic them to not do that? We have nexuses, and these are the things that the magic is drawn from. They're kind of mysterious, and as the book goes on, we think we learn what they are. I think it's like when a ghost dies. I think it's like a death. That's what Sandow says, because you know we have the links with the girls. As soon as the bridegroom was like, you have to like investigate my thing, and then we went to his perspective and we saw Daisy die, I was like, she's gonna be connected to Tara somehow. Somehow this is like a women killing thing and they're gonna be connected. And they were, and it was so satisfying that they were. But a nexus is when a living human soul is like devoured by this Will Walker person, and it creates this nexus of power. I mean, the societies, if they found that out, would probably go a little crazy, because it means that if these nexuses die or whatever, like I think one of the St. Elmo's, they lost their nexus, they're screwed. That's it, magic gone. And that's why New Haven is this magical place, because it's the only place with nexuses. Or is it? Like in the whole world? And there's also this line that like, had Alex always been destined to come to New Haven? And again, that kind of I think feeds into that tone of like, she's got bigger things for her. But that was all very interesting, the way that all tied up. It was all very satisfying and great. And I was yelling at Alex for so long, thinking like, look into this bridegroom stuff, it's gonna be connected somehow, and she just kept not doing it. One of the big things that I'm not satisfied with though is in the beginning when we're watching the prognication, is that how you pronounce it? I can't even remember. I literally finished this book last night. With the Bonesman, and we're watching the guts, is in the very beginning, and the ghosts do the weird thing, and there's that knocking sound, right? Like when they try and summon Darlington back. And it happens again. The ghosts are open, their mouths all wide, and there's that knocking sound. I was thinking, okay, is it connected with the Nexus being created? Is it connected with Tara's death? Do they just do this when people die? Is it because of Tara's death? Which both would make sense. But it happens again when they try and summon Darlington. So that would infer that it has something to do with this hell beastie. So why did they do it at the prognication? I don't understand. And it's really bothering me. It's the one thing that I'm like, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. Like we mentioned back to it that it was weird, but she never tried to figure out what actually happened there, I feel like. Maybe again it was cut from the book, I don't know. The only other thing I would say, I think, in terms of criticisms, is her relationship with Helly was a really big deal, and I didn't feel it as much as I wanted to feel it. Like the sunshine thing was nice, but we're trying to think of her as nice and that Alex likes her, but I'm not feeling it. You're just saying that she's sunshine. You're not showing me that she's sunshine. And the small glimpses we got of her weren't anything special. Like I think I wanted more flashbacks of them just having like fun friends times, like genuinely 100% there for each other. Because in the end, Helly snuck off and left Alex there. Blaming her in any way, she did what she thought she had to do, but it's not like the warmest memory either. I also think I wanted just to see more of Alex and Darlington. The fireplace with the feet I wanted to see. like, how did this happen? Because it seems like they didn't know each other for that long. And he, like, disappeared, like, halfway through the book, and then, that's it, Darlington section's gone. I think it would be nice to have him stay in the book for a little bit longer, because we were kind of learning the societies and the rules of the world through him anyway. I'm sure there was more we could have learned and seen them get to know each other a bit better and kind of cement even further that we want him back. Yeah, I think that's all. It's really promising. There's a lot of meat to chew in here, and it was really intriguing, and I'm looking forward for more books in this series for sure. I think like a 9 out of 10, maybe like a 8.5, 8.75, somewhere in there. Yeah, like I said, I am also in the middle of a couple of things, so I'll quickly talk about them a little bit here. So we have Mercy by Merker and Dolfo. I cannot find how to pronounce this name, I'm so sorry. Mercy, The Fair Lady, The Frost and the Fiend. This also kind of has like a horror vibes. It says it's a horror. I've only read at this point in time the first 2 chapters. It's really intriguing. The art style is really pretty. I will put on screen now what I actually thought. It's set in like ye oldie times, which is really nice. There's like a mystery and like a monster of some kind, and I feel like it's gonna end up having bigger implications in tying up. And then also, I just want to quickly mention that I've been chipping away at All of You, Every Single One by Beatrice Hitchman. I've been listening to the audiobook and I've literally just been chipping away at it throughout the month. I'm currently on page like 184. I think I'm just over halfway. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. I enjoyed Petite Mort too, but I think of the 2 so far, this is the one that's like calling to me more. Really intrigued to see what's gonna happen. It's kind of a bit of a slow burn. And those are all the books that I read in October. Please let me know what you read in October. If you've read any of these and you have any thoughts on them, please let me know in the comments. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Jade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye!